But what we are going to hear from is another DNC delegate who doesn't think too highly of the whole pomp and circumstance. In fact, is now in a position where she's doing her own mass exodus. And I think this is very telling because this video just came out this afternoon.
Okay, I'm gonna get real in this, and it's probably gonna piss some people off, but I'm okay with that, because if I'm not being honest, then what else am I doing? I just got back from the DNC where I signed up to volunteer, and when I initially had signed up to volunteer, Joe Biden was still the nominee. It wasn't yet Kamala Harris. I've worked in progressive politics for a long time. I have worked for many different Democratic candidates, Senate candidates, House candidates, even some Democratic organizations. And as the years have gone by, I found myself getting more and more disillusioned with the Democratic Party, although until now, I've never said that out loud or anywhere public. And I just want to say that by saying this, I'm not necessarily saying that the other party is better. I'm just giving you my experience with working with the Democrats. Throughout my career, I've mostly done campaign fundraising, so I've seen it the way that it works behind the scenes. And I know that candidates spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day just calling donors and begging rich people for money. It's pretty much the only people that they talk to. I mean, of course, sometimes they have to talk to voters, but the majority of their time is just spent calling and begging rich people to give them money for their campaigns.
Jen, would you like to comment on this?
It's true. But that's based on how screwed up the system is, which is why people end up having to take corporate money. So it's like the system is set up to force you to have to take that money because otherwise you're calling people for money. But the problem is that if you're progressive, the people that you're calling are generally like working people. And you're not able to raise the kind of money. This is the cycle. This is the problem.
Experience even during the campaign, having to make calls all the time.
Oh yeah.
You know, the reliance, and I think that that's also something, Nadia, that cannot be, it cannot be overstated how much the Democratic Party has destroyed itself from within, specifically relating to what transpired post 2016 up until probably the last election cycle, where you had a lot of people who felt inspired to try to run for political office, even as high as U.S. Congress, without taking corporate special interest money. And there were a lot of people who were willing to donate and contribute to their efforts in order to do it. And in a number of instances, they were able to raise quite a bit of money. But as we have seen over this, particularly this current election cycle that we're going through with what happened with Jamal Bowman in New York and Cori Bush in St. Louis, and then obviously Jen down here, the Israel lobby will spare no expense to get what they want. And the Democratic Party has done nothing to quash that in any capacity. And what that's doing is effectively rendering people who ever had any intention of running for office just saying, "Ah, the hell with it. What the hell's the point?" Or even attempting to get fundraising dollars that can even allow you to be competitive. Where the hell are you going to get it now? This has truly become a rich person's game, and only a rich person's game. Like, there is no other way in. You are, and especially on the Democratic side, where we can argue till the cows come home about who cheats more in the general election between the two major parties. But when it comes to primaries, there is no comparison. The Democratic Party makes it very clear. Primaries do not exist. And not only did they do that at the, and you can speak on this as well, Nadia, because not only did they do that by basically saying, no, Kamala's the nominee, and that's the end of it. Well, they did that in the state of Florida with saying that Debbie McCurso Powell is the nominee against Rick Scott for the U.S. Senate. There is no primary. Even though if you look back at 2018, when we had a real chance to put a potential progressive in the governor's seat, Andrew Gillum had to get through a real aggressive primary against 5 opponents, including one that everyone was assured in Gwen Graham was going to win, the daughter of Bob Graham, maybe the best statewide elected official the state has ever had. Instead, it ended up becoming this really robust fight. Andrew Gillum wins and had a real chance to win. Now you have no primary whatsoever. Where's the momentum coming from? Where is the level of interest that people are ever going to have? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, when you take away the primary, you really take away the momentum and excitement that a campaign will have, and that's why you can build up. You can build up when you have a primary for the general election. When you cut out the primary, you basically take away that opportunity. And I think what's so sad about Florida is that there wasn't a primary at all. Like, we sued to get candidates on the ballot as for Democratic candidates, and we weren't even able to do that. So there was really no choice in Florida. People just sat around a table at a hotel, clapped their hands, and then Joe Biden was the nominee, like poof. And that's what happened in Florida. There's still a really strong, robust Good Old Boys network, and they do what the Good Old Boys network does. We really have to kind of fight this fascism that exists even within the Democratic Party, like in terms of this genocidal power politics. And to be able to do that, it's like, like what you did, like, constantly standing up, running for Congress. But it's also like how much, like the person that we just heard from, the former campaign worker, like how much people are going to take, like at what point are they going to be completely disillusioned by the process and just kind of cut out from it?
Well, why don't we finish it out?
All right, let her finish what she's saying, but like, how long is this?
It's a few minutes.
Okay.
And what this inevitably means is that we don't actually live in a democracy. It's just rich people calling the shots and having the access to talk to the politicians. They're the ones that basically get their ear all day. They're the ones that can help shape and prioritize what the politician actually focuses on. Even the politicians that detest this, that want to get big money out of politics, still have to play this game. They still have to make these calls. They still do the same amount of just calling rich people and begging them for money. And what unfortunately happens once they get into office, if they get into office, is that they soon realize that the money machine is so great and the seduction of power is so immense that they no longer adhere to these values. When I first got into politics, I thought that Democrats were the party of the people. And at the DNC this week, I felt like I was in a building with the most elite and out-of-touch people in the entire world. It very much felt like, let's just have a huge party and forget all of our problems because the vibes are brat. When I was there, I didn't feel any connection to real America or the place that I come from, which is the Midwest, Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri. I didn't feel any connection to the people that I know right now who are struggling to buy their groceries or to pay their rent. The people who want to know what both candidates are going to do to materially affect change in their lives. And when I was there listening to the speeches, I felt myself feeling mad because I didn't hear anything about the economy. Definitely not in Kamala's speech, and not very much in the others as well. Instead, I heard generic platitudes, things like joy and respect and integrity, and what does that even mean?
They're going to try to lie.
Let's make the military the most lethal in the world. I thought I was part of the anti-war party. I thought I was part of the party that fought for the underdog, that championed working people. When and how did we just become the party of academia and affluence? Because that's what we are right now. How can we ever say that we're going to fight corporate power or give a voice back to those communities that have been left behind when above the delegates on the floor in levels and levels and rings of suites with donors and corporations that we're literally looking down on the people below from above? That's what Chris Cuomo said.
And you know what? Chris Cuomo puts out that video, Nadia, and I really think that just kind of inspired her, as it may have inspired others, to say, you know what? He's right.
Yes, he is right. But the whole thing is ridiculous. And I've been saying this for years. The amount of money and the pomp and circumstance and the ridiculousness and the nothingness about all, but it's always that way.
Nadia, could you speak to just what that experience was like, walking in the halls of that arena? Did you get that same vibe that she was getting?
Yeah, and I think for me also, like felt that way even being on like part of Florida Democratic Party. Like I don't get any welcoming vibe really even from people within the party. And so I actually stayed at a different hotel. So I would have to go in the mornings and grab my credential before they decided they didn't want to give it to me after the first day. But you know, like I just felt like I had a little mental space to be away from that. But at the same time, like even the people who are there from the party who like are like at the like staff level, like not like at the high like executive level, they're also struggling to kind of get there. They have to share rooms with other people, and so it's just a very very different experience depending on who you are. There. There's a lot of people, for example, people who come from Democrats abroad that they have to share multiple people in the room. So, for example, I shared the room with like 3 people. And so I think that that it's like you kind of get sick of it. So I was sick of it probably within the first day, like before it even started, like day 0 on Sunday. I remember when we got there, they had we organized a community event at the Palestinian Community Council. Then we were going to the delegate reception, which is held at the Navy Pier, just massive party with this big, huge cheesecake. And I remember when we were driving there, I saw these horses, and the police were mounted on the horses. And that's like, you know, you have kind of the time where you want to decide not whether or not you want to do your protest. And so for me, that was like the moment, seeing those police officers on the horses, and then going out there to the Navy Pier, seeing all the police officers out there on the boats, also kind of patrolling. And this is a completely secure area with a bunch of delegates. And then there's like all these families there in the Navy Pier area, all these just cops and cops and cops. It must have been like 50 police officers for each delegate and 100 police officers for one protester. Like there was that much heavy police presence. They like secure perimeter, everything around. It's just like, it was completely insane. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Ah, well, good use of tax dollars.
I wonder, did they call in other police departments like they did in DC? They called in like 250 or 300 NYPD for when Netanyahu was speaking at the Capitol,
or the National Guard. So yeah, we'll finish it up.
I'm just so angry. All right.
And he's absolutely right. You know, I went to the DNC this year hoping that I would feel reconnected to the Democratic Party. That I would have more of a sense of understanding of Kamala and her candidacy and what she stood for. But instead, I ended up leaving and feeling the opposite, more disconnected and alone than ever. And I don't think I can support Kamala Harris for president. I don't even know if I can call myself a Democrat anymore. I don't know who I'm going to be supporting, but I know it's not her, and for once, I'm not afraid to say it.
And before we get and I've said this from the beginning, she only can go down Kamala. The only reason that she's polling in any way, shape, or form, which I also question the validity of whatever that poll is, that any of the polls, I really do. I think she's completely manufactured to begin with, but the only reason is because people don't really know her and haven't seen her. And wait until she has to start talking off script. Wait until people see more and more how uninspired and how turned off more and more people are going to be.
She's been the nominee for almost 2 months now, and is finally going to do an interview, and it's going to be her and Governor Walz. So she won't even sit down for an interview on her own. And that's very, very dangerous. And if he comes off looking better than she does, then you really have a problem.